Hi, hello, and welcome to Corkscrew Convos, another theme park podcast. My name's DJ.
And my name is Chris.
And we're here to talk theme parks, roller coasters, theme park conspiracies, barbecue, the theater, and everything under the sun in its time. But first, let's get that disclaimer out of the way.
The views, opinions, and information expressed during the following presentation are solely those of the individuals involved and do not represent organizations affiliated with those individuals. Good evening, DJ. How are you doing today?
Good evening, Chris, and right you are. Thank you for saying that disclaimer, getting all the good stuff out of the way, and now we're ready to talk about anything we want.
Anything under the sun. We have a few interesting things to mention this episode. I think we've had pretty much our biggest week on the Twitter ever, but we'll get into that shortly. In the meantime, DJ, I did want to share this with you before we dive into the coaster talk. I have been slowly, meticulously perfecting my personal chili recipe because eventually I feel like I want to take it to competitions, like get a big vat of it together, take it to competitions. And today, I did something very interesting. I think I'm getting closer to the spice mix that is going to take me to the stratosphere. And I have 2 words for you because of that. Are you ready for them?
I'm ready.
Ground cloves.
Now, describe to me your ideal chili, because some people like it spicy, some people like it a little bit more saucy. Sometimes I get lost in the sauce, we could say. How do you like your chili? For me, I like a lot of ground beef, a lot of beans, and I like a hot chili.
Traditionally, I do really appreciate something that's maybe spicy sweet. If we can accomplish that, I do also tend to make my chilies with a tomatoey base, be it with diced tomatoes from a can, or tomato sauce, or even ketchup if I have to. Interestingly today, I was looking for ground beef at home, and I thought I had some frozen, and I didn't. So DJ, do you know what I did?
Did you still use a meat of some sort?
Oh, I used a meat, and I used beef.
Okay. So I'm gonna say, did you do like a pulled pork or maybe a brisket? Something barbecue-esque?
While I have done that in the past with leftover brisket, that's not what I did today. Today, I looked through the freezer, I was rummaging through, and I found a number of frozen hamburgers.
Interesting. When you say frozen hamburgers, like right out of the cardboard box, you throw them on. Similar to I always think of frozen hamburgers, I think of football games in high school, like a concession stand.
Yeah, it came in a roll, and I had a few left. And so I put them in my pan with a bunch of peppers and jalapenos and onions and a little bit of seasonings to get things going. After I sort of began to brown the hamburgers, I put them in my blender, DJ, and then I blended them and I blended them until they were essentially ground beef, DJ. They were ground beef for all intents and purposes.
Sorry, I'm imagining this, and for some reason I thought of this meat slurry that you've made like a smoothie. But thanks for telling me that it was ground beef. I get the consistency now.
Yeah, that definitely was not the finished product of my chili, thankfully, because I will admit it did not look appetizing. But then I put it back in the pan. I finished up browning the beef a bit, cooked through the peppers and onions and jalapenos and all of that. Then I put it into my Instant Pot along with all of the spices, and I did have to resort to ketchup today because I sort of woke up and said, I'm going to make chili today instead of shopping for it. So I didn't have any canned tomato sauce or diced tomatoes. I did have to resort to ketchup, but that got some sweetness in there. And you know what I said at the beginning? I like spicy sweet chili. Sort of like spicy sweet chili as a Dorito flavor. That's what I want my chili to taste like.
Excellent. Well, I'm happy that you were able to make it work out. But the clove, what difference did that do for you?
Well, that really darkened the flavor. When I was browning my beef and cooking everything in the pan, I did put in some adobo paste to really get some dark, spicy, smoky flavors into it.
Yeah.
But I tasted it as it came out of the pressure cooking segment of the Instant Pot after I released the pressure after 40 minutes and sampled it to see what it was like, see what
You
flavors
do
were
natural
building.
release, or just did you flip it?
It's more fun when you just flip it, but
Right.
I did the
Right.
pressure cooking for 10 minutes, natural release for 40, as I saw on a few places on the internet. And then I sampled it, and it was decent, but it could have gone further. So I was looking through my spice cabinet, and I saw ground cloves, and I gave it a little sniff. I thought about it for a moment, and I sprinkled in a little bit of ground cloves into the pot. Then I closed it back up, maybe put in a dash more cayenne just to add some more spice to it, a little more smoky flavor there. Put it slow cooker for about 3 to 4 hours. By the time dinner came around, it was delicious. And I will admit, the texture of the beef was different from what I'm used to. Maybe even closer to Skyline chili when you look at that beef texture where it's very finely ground, as opposed to if you were to get a chunk of ground beef from the store and then browning that in the pan, making that into chili. But it was still good. And I think next time I might not put in so much ground cloves because that sort of was what the chili tasted like. And I maybe will put in more diced tomatoes next time because I didn't put in any this time. And that's sort of a lot of what I build my flavor profile around. But I was happy with how the chili turned out today, DJ. And one day I will put it in a competition and it just might win.
And I'll be there when you win, and I'll say, I know him. We do a podcast together. Corkscrew Convos, check it out. And you'll be able to say at the beginning of every podcast, you're a championship chili maker. I have actually made chili before and won a competition. However, I was just doing what I was told to do, so I can't take any credit for adding any ingredients or anything like that. I was just a pawn in the game, you could say.
Do you still have the trophy, DJ?
I didn't get the trophy, not at all. Just the glory that I was part of the team when all I was told to do is stir, 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 or pour, pour, pour.
Okay. Well, that's still something you can
I
put on your resume.
Yeah, I enjoy more of the theatrics. We talk about the theater here on Corkscrew Convos sometimes, and it was kind of a theme chili. We all dressed as cowboys, and everyone that came up, we gave a little spiel, and that was kind of my job. So
Okay.
maybe that went into winning it. Probably not. Probably it was just the taste, and they're like, "This is really weird. This guy's really into it."
Well, it's interesting you mentioned a theme for your chili because I already have that put together for my chili booth, that is.
Yeah, the booth is very important. It's basically chili cook-offs are just like trade shows. It's all about the booth as well.
Really? Okay, noted. But for my chili today, it had a sort of a building heat as an aftertaste. So instead of giving it a name that would have been a pure ripoff of what is an existing roller coaster name of Afterburn, I did something adjacent to that, DJ. And I thought a bit for a moment, and you know how I'm a nerd about some sort of things. Jet planes are cool, aren't
Is
they?
it volcano chili?
No, it's not volcano chili.
Okay, okay.
But jet planes are cool, these jets, supersonic, all that sort of stuff. Sometimes I go down the internet rabbit hole and just read about really fast planes, as I do ships and roller coasters and all other manner of things. But the B-2 stealth bomber is a beautiful plane. Beautiful in the sense that it's weird looking and it looks aggressive, but in a cool way. DJ, if you're not familiar with it, this is the plane that essentially has a right angle as its front half. And then, do you know the B&M logo, DJ?
I want to say that I do.
As it's sort of like a triangle, but the bottom of the triangle is almost like a zigzag pattern.
Yes, I know what you're talking about.
Okay,
Yep.
that is the shape of the B-2 stealth bomber.
Right.
And there's a lot I don't know and a lot I will never know about Air Force and military and industrial complex and all that sort of thing, but I can say that it's a cool looking plane, at least, DJ. It looks cool and it flies fast. And so, the name of my chili, if I ever compete, and I think I know the market for chili competitions, so here's the name of it and the tagline. It's B-2 Stealth Bomber Chili. By the time you feel the heat, it's too late.
Ooh. I like that.
Yeah, I came up with
I
that at
like
dinner
that.
today, and other people eating the chili were like, "I don't get it," and I said, "Okay, never mind." But that was what was rolling around in my head as I was eating my chili today.
Well, that's an interesting concept you have, but I think you've got something there. Stick with it. I have actually seen those bombers many times. Where I grew up was close to an Air Force base, and I remember being out playing in elementary school outside, and oh, we can hear it, and here it came overhead. Really cool
Wow,
thing to see. Yep, yep.
very cool. But DJ, when you gave us this little tagline at the beginning of the show, you mentioned all the things that we're here to talk about. We didn't mention chili, or did we?
We didn't, but we did mention barbecue, which I thought was in this chili, and I learned that it was in prior chilies, but the B-52 bomber, the stealth bomber,
Well,
does not
B-52 is a
feature
different
that.
plane,
I'm thinking
DJ,
of something else, not B-52. That's
and
that's
a
that's
band,
like a
I
big
think.
prop plane. Yes,
But so
yes.
let's retrack. Let's go back to this coaster talk, theme parks, that sort of stuff, and let's talk about our last episode, DJ. I think it was one of my favorites.
It was a great episode. We talked, if you remembered your listener, we talked for over 2 hours about a park that definitely could use some improvement. That was Six Flags America over in Maryland, just outside of Washington, D.C. We talked for over 2 hours talking about different things we wanted to do to the park, what we thought was realistic. We have a little creative imagination thrown in there too, but we try and be realistic as we can. And if you haven't heard that episode, dear listener, it is the perfect episode for a long car drive, maybe getting some chores done at the house. I would say mow the lawn, but it is February, and we've had, I think Monday it was negative 18 at one point where I live, which is unheard of.
Ooh,
And of course, if you've been affected by these storms, our heart goes out to you. And I was affected as well, but wow, things have been crazy. And so, if you even need maybe a little bit of a pick me up, this is a great opportunity to do it. Check out that episode.
yeah, it's our Planet Park topic that we've now done twice. The first time was for Cedar Point, where we spent actually an hour and 48 or 58 minutes.
Yeah, I believe
Yeah.
so. Almost 2 hours.
Yeah,
Yeah.
where we were talking about that park, and that was a sort of a park where they already have a lot of coasters. They have a resort built up there, but still, there are some things that we would want to improve there. With Six Flags America, it doesn't have the same blessings of scale or previous expenditure as Cedar Point or another really major park on the same scale. So Six Flags America, we thought about what we would change, what we'd improve on, and I think that we really came to a conclusion over the course of, I think it was 6 years that we did end up planning out, of really putting our mark on that park and improving the experience for everyone who passes through that gate.
It was a fun episode too because you have actually been to that park. You have a history with it. I've never been there. I know about it, and I felt like I was able to still offer some things that you thought were interesting and were valid, and I enjoyed listening to you about the park as well.
Yeah, I mean, we mentioned it in the last episode as we were introducing Six Flags America. That was a park in which I had I think it was my first date ever. I took a special someone to that park over spring break, and it was a really cold day, so I think we were maybe one of 12 guests in the park. It was one of those days where it felt like that. And when you go through the gate and you just see no one else there, but it's not closed, it's just open, but people aren't there for whatever reason, you know it's going to be a special day. And I mean, there, if I'm pulling back the curtain a little bit, we didn't have a second date with that special someone, but we had a good time and we were good friends for years after that. So I do have Six Flags America to thank for that.
Memories made at any theme park, whether Six Flags, Cedar Fair, Herschend Family, wherever you're at, always memories to be made. And speaking of memories, why don't we go back in time all the way to 1919 as we do this little bit we've been doing for a while. If you've been listening to us, you know that each episode we have been detailing a roller coaster from the year that corresponds to the episode that you're listening to now. So for our 19th episode, we'll be going back to 1919. Do you have any memories of 1919, Chris?
Well, the Great War had just ended. We were getting ready for,
Ah, yes.
we were getting ready for a wild decade to follow.
Yeah.
Suffrage happened, so that was great.
Yep.
There was an influenza passing through the people, so maybe a little bit of parallelism there. But 1919,
Also, Art Deco, just Art Deco in general.
Art Deco, that's something that I love. I mean, I go up to New York City and I see all the Art Deco frescoes or whatever they call it around 30 Rock and Rockefeller Center and all that. I like it.
Did you ever have the Art Deco expansion pack for Roller Coaster Tycoon 2?
No, I never played Roller Coaster Tycoon 2. I was RCT 3 all the way.
Oh. Well, that's going to be a good topic for us someday. We need to figure out how to get you to play the second one and maybe the first one and get your thoughts, because most people who have played all those games, and hopefully people at home, know that the second one is the best installment in the RCT series. But that's a conversation for another day.
Yeah, and let's get back to our 1919 roller coaster. This is our 19th episode, so we're picking a coaster to highlight that opened in 1919. And DJ, that's the Jackrabbit.
Another common name. We've been detailing different rides, and we've had common names, different coasters sharing the same names, we should say. Very common back in the day. Now it's very important, I would say, that all major coasters have a very specific, different name to really set themselves apart, but not back in the day.
Yeah, there were a lot of scenic railways. There were a lot of ones simply named Roller Coaster or Big Dipper, and Cyclone's going to be pretty big in the next few years when we're highlighting these following years from 1919. But so was Jackrabbit. Like, spoiler alert, we think of our 20th episode. I'm pretty sure that our 20th episode coaster is going to be Jackrabbit at Kennywood, because that just celebrated its 100th anniversary, DJ.
Yeah, and that's even cooler because I believe that will be the first ride we've detailed next episode, and we'll save some more for next episode, but that'll be the first that's still operational.
Oh my goodness, DJ, I just had a bit of deja vu. Can you answer this question for me? On our 17th episode, did we choose the wild one to highlight?
I don't think we did.
Oh no, I think we went to another coaster.
So you're telling me we missed an opportunity already?
We did, and that was a coaster I've actually ridden that opened in 1917. But you know, the road's not traveled. Let's get back to Jackrabbit.
Well, the Jackrabbit in Kennywood has not moved. It has not moved.
Right, and neither was the
It's
one
been there for years.
that was the Jackrabbit at Clementon Park in Clementon, New Jersey. This was made by the Philadelphia Toboggan Company. It had a sort of a figure-8 design with a little bit of changes in there too. And it was designed by John A. Miller, who's going to probably be a pretty familiar name moving forward, because he designed about 150 roller coasters from 1903 to 1936, and this was one of them.
Yeah, Miller is a very, you could say, household name when it comes to the enthusiast world, responsible for many coasters, as you just said, Chris. And of course, you see these coasters and you think, oh, you know, it's kind of all, they all kind of seem to do the same thing, but you have to remember how revolutionary this was, and this boom and influx of capital that allowed people to construct these things. John Miller was a force in really what could be described as the first golden age of roller coasters.
Right. No calculators, no computers. It was all drafting and carpentry work and just looking at it and putting it together. And they made some really great coasters back in the day, and some wild designs too. Dear listener, if you haven't already seen the Crystal Beach Cyclone on the internet, I'd encourage you to look up a picture of that and try to rationalize that in your head. That was a wild ride.
Yeah, a ride so intense that folks would have to be examined by a medical officer before being allowed to go back to the park.
Really? Oh my word.
Yes, that is a true story.
Well, we're going to have to look up the year that the Crystal Beach Cyclone opened so we can highlight that. But with this Jackrabbit from the Clementon Park, unlike our previous historic coaster highlights when we choose a coaster to bring up, this one actually had a long operating life. And a lot of our previous coasters have maybe operated maybe 3 to 5 years, sometimes even less than a year in a few cases. But this coaster actually lasted until our current millennium. It closed in 2002 and then sat there for a few years, and it was demolished in 2007.
Now, what is a figure eight design? Is that exactly what it sounds like? It's just a simple go one way, do a dip, turn around, kind of go the same way, do another dip, turn around again. Is it exactly what it sounds like?
Yes, coasters typically with the figure eight layout, they do have a few drops, a few hills, but the turnarounds are generally elevated and not really banked. So the track is sort of flat as you're going through the turns, and then you go down and maybe a few more hills, and it looks like an eight, sort of. And some modern examples would be Grizzly at King's Dominion, the little wooden coasters at Kings Island and Kings Dominion as well. They are also figure eight style roller coasters too. And that was a figure eight layout. It was very popular back in the day, and coasters survive with that layout to this day.
Now, I do find interesting that this thing was closed in 2002. I mean, that's within our lifetime. And you and I mean, we're not old by any means. I feel like we're relatively young. And so to know that a structure has been sitting there since 1919, I just find that crazy.
Well, that's the thing about wooden coasters. Something that's inherent in the operating and maintenance and refurbishment of wooden coasters is continuously replacing sections of the track. So I don't know if lumber survived, say, from 1919 to 2002. I mean, surely not, because a lot of that wood simply had to be replaced at one point because of the treatment that they used for lumber in the 70s that turns out is not great for people. So they replaced that when better wood, better lumber came out there. And again, I'm no consumer product safety official or anything like that, so I don't want to disparage any certain roller coaster or style of lumber, but I do remember hearing something about wood back in the day being treated with a lot of things that would make the wood last, and now we use different materials. So I would say there probably wasn't a lot left from the 1919 Jackrabbit, but I mean, it's the same coaster. It's sort of like a living, breathing thing because it's wood. Sure, it's not live wood, but wood expands and contracts, and you can move with it, and it handles vibrations and all of that sort of thing. For all intents and purposes, and that's the second time I'm using that phrase in this podcast, I only have one time left that I can use that. It was the same coaster, the same experience for nearly 100 years.
And now there's a 50-foot drop, over 1,300 feet long, nearly 1,400 feet. I feel like a 50-foot drop is pretty big for one single drop on a coaster that old.
Yeah, I remember thinking about some of our previous coasters that we've highlighted. A lot of times it was maybe 15 feet, 30 feet, and the like with that. But I think, I know as we go through the years, we will definitely see those statistics tick upward. We'll definitely see that.
Absolutely. Well, that's always an interesting point to talk about. Get ready for 1920. You'll never guess what ride we're going to cover that year. But get excited for that. We have something else to talk about that real quick before we get into more of the coaster talk. But this is a chance for you to perhaps win something, dear listener. That's on Instagram. We're trying to get to 250 followers, and with that, Chris has come up with a great giveaway, and I'm supplying the prize. Chris, what exactly do our listeners have to do to qualify for this priceless prize?
Well, you were talking about all these numbers like 1919, 1920. DJ, I have another number for you, and that number is 250. And that corresponds to the number of followers that we'll have when we do our first giveaway for Corkscrew Convos. Yay, woo! That means, DJ, upon our 250th follower on Instagram, we will make a special post on our Instagram feed that will sort of give these same directions that we're talking about right now and detail some important information. To enter the drawing when we reach 250 followers, you got to follow the Instagram, that is Corkscrew Convos, pretty easy to find. And then you also have to like and comment on that celebration post that I've been talking about. And DJ, what is the prize that people will enter the drawing to hopefully win?
The prize, Chris, and the prize, dear listener, is, like I said, a very priceless item. 4 of your very own coasters. And I'm not talking about roller coasters. I'm talking about drink coasters.
Oh.
These are 4 drink coasters from Great Coasters International, also known as GCI, a coaster manufacturer that makes very popular family style, teetering on extreme, I would say, wooden roller coasters. These are rides that the whole family can enjoy, can definitely be the first major coaster even for young folks or people who maybe have not ridden a roller coaster before. But they have many great credits out there, many great installations. You're thinking of rides such as Mystic Timbers, Apocalypse, Prowler, White Lightning, Thunderhead, you name it. There are plenty of different GCI, Great Coasters International roller coasters out there, located in Sunbury, Pennsylvania, actually. And so these 4 coasters, I believe, are given out to potential buyers, potential partners, for people who are interested in working with Great Coasters International. And essentially, they're 4 coasters. They have the GCI logo on them. They say, "Have a drink on us." And they're kind of a biodegradable sort of cardboard. It's a really interesting item. It's definitely, in my opinion, a conversation starter. If you have folks over at your house, when we can do that again, definitely a way to say, what is that? And you're able to say, oh, that's my roller coaster. Well, they're my coasters. And you can jump into a whole conversation about how you listen to Corkscrew Convos. It's your favorite podcast ever, and how they too should be a listener.
Yeah, this isn't something that you can buy at your local corner store, DJ. Am I right about that?
That is right. The only way you can get these, I would assume, is either visiting their office in Pennsylvania, perhaps emailing them or calling them and hoping they'll send them to you, or grabbing them from the various trade shows that they exhibit at.
That being said, we do not recommend calling or emailing GCI asking for free stuff. Just got to put that out there.
Yeah, and I meant to say that as don't do that. I meant to say they're not going to do that for you.
Yeah, so to close up this giveaway talk, we do have to mention the drawing. We will have to limit it, unfortunately, to contestants that would have shipping addresses in the contiguous United States. We right now just really don't have the means for international shipping at this time. Now, in the future, maybe that'll change. Right now, we're just going to limit it to the contiguous United States.
That's right. If you listen to this podcast and you encourage your friends, maybe we'll be able to get to that point where we can ship to our international friends. But at this point, it is limited to the contiguous United States, and that's just how it is for now. That being said, there are more giveaways on the way. This is first of many, I would say.
I am really looking forward to hearing about new giveaways in the future.
Do you want to hear about a little piece of merch I have real quick? A little piece that sits in my closet?
Sure.
I have from Rocky Mountain Construction, RMC, I have an actual piece of steel that was used in creating one of their roller coasters, and it's a candle holder, and it's got RMC stamped into the metal. Not just stamped, but actually cut through.
Wow.
So it functions as a candle holder. You could put a tea light in it or something, and you'll see RMC in the steel. It's pretty cool.
DJ,
maybe I'll give it away. Who
no,
knows?
no,
that's like a 10,000 follower giveaway.
Yeah, don't give that away. You got to keep that, man. That's really cool. Well, that is our first giveaway. A lot of interesting things. I mean, I'm looking forward to really growing the presence on Instagram. We like to take pretty pictures, all that sort of thing. Of course, we're also on the Twitter, which we're about to mention, and the Facebook, and you can email us to corkscrewconvos@gmail.com. But DJ, do you know where we have to go next?
I do know where we have to go next. I need to say a quick shout out to a listener, Ryan. This is his favorite segment of our podcast when we do it. The nice sound effect that you use for this, Chris, he absolutely loves. So I hope he's smiling. I hope he's blushing a little bit as I hype up what is effectively Ryan's favorite segment of this show.
Okay. Well, DJ, I have an idea. I mean, we have an idea. I think we sort of put this together using both of our brains. But we can't just take that idea anywhere. We have to go to the idea corner. Won't you join me there, DJ?
Okay.
So here we are in the idea corner, and we're not just talking about anything. I think this is our most significant idea yet.
This is Chris's idea corner, of which I am leasing space in the idea corner.
Yeah, I mean, we're going to get into the complicated relationship of owning the property versus operating it / managing it in a little bit, but first let's start at the beginning.
That's an excellent segue.
Yes, this is something that has grown from maybe a spark on Wednesday, February 17th, to really a blaze across the World Wide Web. DJ, let me take you through it. On Wednesday, February 17th, Kentucky Kingdom, a nice little park in Louisville, Kentucky, they tweeted a short video that sort of looked like any old teaser video for maybe a new attraction, a new announcement for something. Kentucky Kingdom's Twitter account is really fun and lighthearted, so they had a teaser video, and it was fun. It had a little map on it at one point with a leaf and a log, and then it looked like it was teasing the announcement date for something. Now, what that was, they didn't say, but they did have the hashtag a new story. So you texted me, DJ, and you asked me, one of these images in the video, it looks like a map. I said, yes, that does look like a map. There are circles in there. There's lines. There's a compass rose and some squiggly lines too. But DJ, you said, is that a map of the United States? And then I started looking at it, DJ.
I did say that, and the reason that it kind of stuck out to me was the bodies of water. They didn't look random. They looked exactly like what you would see on a map, the rivers in the United States. The Mississippi's on there, the Missouri even. And so thinking that, where my mind went, I thought, that's really weird that they would just pull something that's a real map. Either it's a coincidence or they're doing it for a reason. And a little bit of context here too, and we'll get into it a little bit more, but you said Kentucky Kingdom, you're talking about it, Chris, and saying it was a little park. There's actually an interesting history here. It's a bigger park than one would think. In fact, I believe they had one of the very first RMC coasters ever, one of the very first conversions was Storm Chaser, and they have some other great rides, and it's in an interesting area of the park. But you're right. They posted this. It was very interesting. It looked like a ride announcement. I initially thought, it was going to be similar to Forbidden Frontier, which is like a live action play that they do in Cedar Point. You get to be a part of it just because it looks so similar. Either that or some sort of pirate ride or something. They're very loose on their themes at Kentucky Kingdom, so really anything can go. That's another thing you have to consider. There had been talks of maybe a new RMC was coming, or maybe a different sort of dark ride attraction. But then you're right, I texted you, and this looks like a real map. It looks like they're not just pulling this out of thin air.
Yeah, so we got to looking, and we were thinking about using the context of this being the United States. What are all of these circles and lines pointing to? We sort of got our bearings by looking at what we assumed to be the rivers and the coastlines, and soon we could find out, that's the coast of Louisiana right there. No, there's the top of Kentucky right next to a circle that we assumed to be over Kentucky Kingdom and Louisville. And then I saw the Mid-Atlantic Peninsula right there, the Delmarva Peninsula, and we pretty soon had our bearings. And then I dropped everything and I said, oh my goodness, DJ, we need to get to the bottom of this. We need to start to break down what this map is trying to tell us. So I started looking at Google Maps, looking at satellite images, and shortly, DJ, we noticed something very strange. Each point on the map, with two exceptions that we'll get into shortly, corresponded with a property owned and or operated by a large hospitality and entertainment company called Herschend Family Entertainment. I mean, even their resorts, which are that didn't really have ties to the themed entertainment industry and the aquariums that they have too. All of their listed properties and locations, except for one, were included on this map.
Yes, and this is a company that operates theme parks from around the country. You've got parks such as Wild Adventures, you have Dollywood, Silver Dollar City, like you said, a variety of resorts and aquariums as well. So this is an established company. One big difference here between, say, Six Flags and Cedar Fair, however, is the size. They're a bit smaller, and they're not a publicly traded company.
Right, they are private, and we should mention Kentucky Kingdom is currently owned and operated by a business called Theme Parks LLC, which is at heart the savior of Kentucky Kingdom's business that he operates from with a lot of things. And so that is who owns Kentucky Kingdom right now. And it's interesting to know. Let's dive into these exceptions, DJ, that I mentioned just a moment ago. Kentucky Kingdom is not a Herschend family entertainment property, though they were the originator of the tweet, which I should mention has since been deleted a day later. But they feature prominently on that map with one of those circles that's pretty nicely decorated there too. They also had a circle for what we then determined to be Oklahoma City, where it is also circled on the map. And the first thing we thought about, Frontier City? That is a property that is operated by Six Flags as of 2019, I believe, but it is still owned, I believe, from Premier Parks. And there is another water park in Oklahoma City as well that was previously operated by Herschend Family Entertainment, but that is no longer the case. I think that is also under the Six Flags name now too, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, I believe it's a Hurricane Harbor Park.
Mm-hmm. And so it's strange that we have the Kentucky Kingdom discrepancy, but now we have the Oklahoma City discrepancy, which, what does Frontier City have to do with this? Well, we're just going to have to wait a little bit. There is another interesting exception to this map, which at the surface just looks like a map of Herschend properties with these exceptions that we're going through. There is a current theme park which is owned and operated by Herschend Family Entertainment that was not included as one of the circles on the map, DJ, even though it could have been circled on the existing map as it had been drawn, because they did have room for a space along the Florida-Georgia line, not a band, the actual region. That was Wild Adventures, which is a nice little park in Valdosta, Georgia. They have a lot of animal experiences. They have a couple of coasters there too. It is Herschend's third theme park that they have, but it was not included on this map. And DJ, let me pull up the map right now so I can mention all of the Herschend properties that were included on the map. Because I think it's really strange that if we are reading this map correctly, they include the Newport Aquarium in Newport, Kentucky, the Adventure Aquarium in Camden, New Jersey, Dollywood and the associated attractions in Pigeon Forge, Tennessee, Kentucky Kingdom, interestingly, in Louisville, Kentucky, Silver Dollar City and the associated attractions in Branson, Missouri. They circle something in Oklahoma City, as we have mentioned. They also circle Callaway Resort and Gardens, which is a Herschend-owned and operated resort in Pine Mountain, Georgia, and also Stone Mountain, which they operate the attractions there in Atlanta, Georgia. But not pictured was Wild Adventures in Valdosta, Georgia. So that's another interesting
this is something that really surprised me, because when you had mentioned that, I was like, well, like you said, that's their third park, albeit not as big as Dollywood, Silver Dollar City, perhaps not even themed as well. Some would even consider it maybe more an amusement park rather than a theme park. That being said, that really didn't make any sense to me. I thought, oh, surely they just have it wrong. But where it should be, which is, like you said, the Florida-Georgia line area, there is no dot there. So I wonder if that does mean something. Or I also do kind of wonder, too, if you said this tweet has now been removed. I didn't know the tweet had been removed until we recorded this. If the tweet had been removed, I wonder if maybe the person that made that graphic just didn't know the park existed, or that Valdosta, where it was at. Maybe they thought it was close to Atlanta. But I find it interesting that they would point out Stone Mountain Park. I feel like it's just, hey, this is where the headquarters of Herschend Family Entertainment is, rather than, oh, this is where Stone Mountain Park is, because they don't. That's owned by the state of Georgia. They don't own that park. They just
They
work with that park. They operate it.
They have
manage it. You could say, I guess.
Yeah, some sort of contract to operate the attractions and businesses directly around the mountain itself.
Right.
I will mention that the map itself does have some question marks to it that I did include when I posted this on Twitter, and then it went viral because people were looking at it and saying, "Oh my God, maybe you cracked the code," or "I don't know, I think you're reading too much into it." and I held my tongue. I didn't say anything, even though I know we're going to be right. I mean, how can you look at this map and not say that it's Herschend properties highlighted? I mean, you look at
right, you would have to say it's the properties, but it's a coincidence. You can't just say, oh, we're reading into it, because I feel like we could literally take a map and overlay it. Maybe that's what we should have done.
Yeah,
taken a map and said, nope, that's it.
I will mention, with the graphic that I created building off of the map that was included in their video, I did put a question mark next to the Adventure Aquarium circle, or what I assume to be the Adventure Aquarium circle, because looking at the map, if I am reading it correctly, the circle itself is over the Atlantic Ocean, pretty close to Manhattan and New York City is where their circle is, even though Camden, New Jersey is pretty close to the Pennsylvania border, if I'm not mistaken, as that part of New Jersey. So there are some discrepancies, but I think we're reading the map correctly, DJ, and now it's a matter of making sense out of this, because we said it, the teaser tweet has since been deleted a day later by Kentucky Kingdom. That hasn't stopped people speculating. Even us too. We're recording about it, talking about it. What does it mean? What date are they teasing for?
That's so weird. Why did they take it down? I didn't know that.
Yeah.
I haven't looked at it.
Yeah, and we're saying, what are the circles drawn on the map? What do they mean? We could even look at the style of circle. The circles on the map that are sort of double circles are feasibly theme parks, because they have Silver Dollar City and Dollywood and Kentucky Kingdom with that double circle, and then the Oklahoma City circle is also double circle. So I feel like I'm a conspiracy theorist.
Yeah, it's like a double circle, more weight on the circle, more ink, you could say.
So does that lend more credence to Frontier City somehow being involved in this gelatinous story that we're trying to make sense out of? Here is my question.
Now, see, this.
Go ahead.
Just real quick, this is also where I was at too. Like, I think that's what gave it away to me more than the actual circles themselves. Of, okay, it could be these parks, but the fact that those four have the doubles, the actual theme amusement parks, that's where I'm like, okay, it can't be, like, that's so important. I mean, either someone was overlooking this or something. I mean, that was just, it's so obvious at that point.
Yes, DJ, yes, but here is my question, and I'm going to start making some assertions. You can stop me if I'm getting too out there, but I don't think I will be. Here's my question, DJ.
Well, we've already made some assertions, so keep it going.
Is Ed Hart, the owner of Kentucky Kingdom, and by extension his business, Theme Parks LLC, about to flip the same amusement park for the second time? Hear me out. Kentucky Kingdom opened in 1987. It went bankrupt after 1 year. Then, Ed Hart bought it, reopened it in 1990, and built it into a successful amusement park over the next 8 years. Hart then sold the park to Six Flags via Premier Parks in 1998, and they operated it through the 2009 season, after which a bankrupt Six Flags Corporation closed the park and moved its best attractions to other Six Flags parks. Then there were some attempts to reopen the park in the following years, but it wasn't until Ed Hart returned in 2014 and repurchased the park that it successfully reopened, DJ. Then we think about the last 7 years that we've had. There have been a major rebuilding of the quality and quantity of the attraction lineup. They've added 3 coasters, a ton of flat rides, they've really built up the water park, and it is once again a great amusement park. There is so much to do and see, it's a good time. I haven't been there personally, but I know people that have, and I've looked at it a lot, and it looks great. So could he have once again seen the potential in this little property in Louisville, Kentucky, pretty close to the airport, known what it could grow to be, and then give it the right investment and leadership to make it a big, successful park again? That is my question, DJ. Is he about to operate like we think a personality on HGTV who buys a shuttered house, rebuilds parts of it, paints it, puts in new countertops, builds an island in the kitchen because every kitchen now has to have an island? But he built up this park again, and now is he about to sell it to another operator and reap the benefits? That is my question. And so concerning those discrepancies on the map, we have to also ask, what's going on with Wild Adventures? Is this simply an oversight, or is something going on with the ownership of Wild Adventures? Because you have to admit it, this theme park, this amusement park in Valdosta, Georgia, is not cut from the same cloth as Dollywood or Silver Dollar City. So a lot of things going on with that. But another question is, when we think about that double circle in Oklahoma City, what's going on with what might be Frontier City? I mean, it's now operated by Six Flags. I mean, could these parks be included in what would have never been done before, previously unheard of, a trade? Some sort of deal including a trade where Frontier City comes to Herschend and Wild Adventures goes to Six Flags? I mean, I'm sure enthusiasts have talked about such a deal in podcasts and YouTube videos and slideshows, but I never thought that something like that could happen. And surely it cannot be that neat and simple, but you have to think about that. Because Frontier City, currently owned by EPR Properties, but operated by Six Flags, I just don't know, DJ. I just don't know.
Yeah, the trade idea is interesting because, like, how do they value that? Like, especially you would wonder for any governmental filings or anything they would have to file. I don't know how that would work. It's an interesting idea, but I think we're both right. You cannot look at that map and wonder, why isn't Wild Adventures part of that? And why is what seems to be Oklahoma City here? And again, why does it have the thicker weight on the circle, the 2 circles, indicating a theme park like the others would? It's very interesting. And, you know, once again, I think if you just put a real map underneath this, map that they provided, it's pretty obvious what this is. And the fact that the tweet was deleted, like, we know that Kentucky Kingdom is, at least on Twitter, very fun. They're one of the fun parks, you could say. Silver Dollar City is another one, posting lots of meme content, funny content. And then they delete this one. You would think if it was a rumor or it was something that wasn't substantive, they would just roll with it. I remember a tweet saying, "Oh, they're just trolling us." I don't know about that.
So, DJ, I feel like we've been in this idea corner for a long time. I think we're almost out of it. I just have to leave us with one final note, and it's about that same teaser video. Another clue that we haven't even mentioned. In the top left of the map, there was a red maple leaf in the corner. That same kind of leaf is used in Herschend corporate logos.
Yep, it's in their logo. They've got the maple leaf. I think it's normally golden, but again, out of the 2 objects in there, a leaf and a stick of wood, why did they choose that?
It's very rustic for something that would be Kentucky Kingdom, which, again, their theme is broad, but a lot of their names of the major attractions there are weather themed or aviation themed, and this would be a pretty big departure from that.
Right.
So that's all I have to say about that, DJ. Let's get out of the corner now.
We're out of the corner, Ryan. Hope you enjoyed that.
Well, let's get into what is going on around the theme parks. Corkscrew Convos cleared for dispatch. Let's dive in.
So now we're going to talk about our goings on, and this is things that we're thinking about. It could be current events, intriguing developments, funny jokes, ghost stories perhaps, public apologies, juicy rumors, album reviews, and or trip reports. Essentially what this is we bring something to you, dear listener, with each episode that we give you a little more information on. We're going to cover a variety of topics. Could be news, could not be news, something that we've noticed. It's not in the idea corner. It has its own specific spot in the room or the house of Corkscrew Convos, you could say.
The manor.
But with each story, we have something, with the Corkscrew Convos manor. But every little thing that we talk about in goings on, we usually have some information behind it. And so, Chris, what's going on?
Well, I feel like we've spent a lot of our time talking about the eastern half of the United States. Let's head out west. Let's go to a state called Nevada, because they have a city called Las Vegas. And in that city, there is plans for a new resort to be built there. But here's the catch. There wouldn't be any gambling at that resort, even though it would be in Las Vegas, a city built on gaming. I should note, Screamscape highlighted this article by Travel and Leisure, written by Rachel Chang. So if you are interested in going back to the primary source, that is the author and the medium to do that. The plan is in 2024, opening something called Majestic Las Vegas. It would be a 5-star resort focusing on comfort and luxury over what would be what most resorts offer in the city, which is convenient access to gambling and the Las Vegas Strip. It would be a few blocks out from the Strip, so it would be a ways away when you're thinking about how convenient it is to be near all of the other big resorts that are name brands, really. It would be across the street from the Las Vegas Convention Center. So maybe going after a slightly different demographic there. They'd have some restaurants, a nice courtyard, dancing fountains, maybe like the Bellagio, and other manner of 5-star amenities. There would also be no smoking, which is a trend that is passing through not only the amusement industry with a lot of theme parks, but through Las Vegas as well. Previously in Las Vegas, there was smoking everywhere, and you couldn't really avoid it if you didn't like it. Now, things are changing. Tides are changing, really. So, DJ, I got to thinking, who would this hotel be for? I mean, it's in Las Vegas, but there's not gambling in the lobby. There's not these slot machines that have the loud ding, 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 and lights and all of that. Who could this be for, DJ?
Yeah, that's a good point. Anytime I think of a casino, it's funny you say no smoking, because that's the first thing that comes to my mind is people smoking. Every single time I think about a casino, that's what I think of. And also, I think there is kind of this negativity carried with gambling as well. Like, oh, maybe the hotel isn't as safe because it has a casino for some reason, or it's a little more sketchy maybe. Who is the hotel for? That's a good question. Definitely not who you would think is the stereotypical Las Vegas visitor. Have you been to Vegas before? I have not been.
I've been to the airport twice, DJ, and that is the extent of my Vegas experience.
Was that a Southwest layover?
Yes, it was. That is correct.
Okay. It was either that or Allegiant. That's
Yeah.
where Allegiant's headquartered.
I was on my way to San Francisco, and I passed through Las Vegas, and it was a very interesting airport, because even walking through the airport, there were game machines and slot machines everywhere.
Yeah, it's a Southwest hub.
Well, I've been doing some thinking about maybe who this hotel is for. And you think about it, maybe a younger audience. And this would be an audience that sees Vegas as a destination for more than gambling. Because it seems like Las Vegas has been diversifying over the last few decades. I mean, look at the 1990s and look at Las Vegas today. They have added and built so many attractions and entertainment offerings and shows that make it so much more than just going to gamble at a casino. I mean, even the Adventure Dome opened in 1993, and that's just one example of many of the attractions. There's an M&M store. There's all sorts of attractions that would attract a family, not necessarily just someone going for gambling. There also was, starting in the 90s, the Star Trek Experience, which was a pretty big deal in its time. When it was another early example of going to Vegas for more than just gaming.
Did we see the Stratosphere in the 90s?
Yes, the Stratosphere opened in the 90s as well. Interestingly, DJ, I was surfing YouTube just a few days ago, and I found a video that was just like a B-roll footage of driving down the Las Vegas Strip, and it was unrecognizable from what it looks like now. The Strip has been built up and polished, and I use polished in a relative sense, but polished to be an entertainment hub, to look like Times Square or Sunset Boulevard or something like that in Hollywood, instead of just a gaming hub. Interestingly, I mean, if people do search for it on YouTube, to say driving down the Las Vegas Strip in the 90s, they'll probably find the same video. You could see in the distance the Stratosphere Tower under construction. It was so interesting to just watch that video. I'll probably watch it for 15 minutes, just someone driving down the Las Vegas Strip. Every so often, I would say, "Oh, there's Caesar's Palace." But everything outside of it just looked unrecognizable because it has gone through a whole lot of change in the maybe 25 years since that video was taken.
Yeah, old Fremont, I'm sure, was more relevant than it is now, too. I always hear from my grandpa, who goes to Las Vegas quite a bit, actually. It's one of the only places he goes. He went there since it really started, which is really interesting. And a little connection as well. My favorite movie of all time is also based in Las Vegas.
Wait, let me see if I can guess it.
It's really, sure.
Is it a James Bond movie?
It is not.
Okay, then I don't know.
It's a Scorsese film.
Oh, The Wolf of Wall Street.
Nope.
Goodfellas.
That's
That's
set in
the
Wall
same
Street.
movie.
Casino.
Casino. I haven't seen that one yet.
Oh, Robert De Niro, Joe Pesci, very good. Sharon Stone.
Interesting. I'm going to have to see that. I have watched some of Goodfellas for the first time just this past week.
The first time? Oh.
Yeah, it's my first time watching it. I haven't finished it yet because it is a long movie, but I'm working my way through it. And there are some similarities between that and Wolf of Wall Street. Not a bad thing, just an observation, and I'm sure I'm not the first one to think that.
Yeah, it's just like watching a Tarantino film. Lots of similarities.
Yes. Well, DJ, what else is going on?
We have some news out of Silver Dollar City. This also comes to us from Screamscape.com, a place where you can find all sorts of news about the theme park industry. And that is dirt being pushed around in a backstage area of the park. This is a theme park located center of the country in Branson, Missouri, in the Ozark Mountains. And we are seeing, from what seems to be folks driving by on the highway there by the park, that land is being moved in the area behind Fireman's Landing. That was a 2015 expansion, a family area with a variety of rides for smaller kids. And the new pond that was created for Mystic River Falls this past year in 2020. Hard to say new. There was an existing pond there, but they changed it. They actually made it a bit smaller, it seems, at least when you look at it. But this was land previously occupied by trees. Backstage infrastructure as well. You've got the roundhouse back there for their locomotives, and it also seems to be where a variety of maintenance, that sort of thing happens. I've noticed the tree is stored back there. So a variety of things in that area. But we're not sure what could possibly be going on. There's a lot of speculation here. I feel like Silver Dollar City is one of those parks where anytime there's dirt moving, there is a wide variety of theories of what it can be. And for some context, the last two major developments we've had there have both been record-breaking rides, really the past three, if you think about it. You have Outlaw Run, which at the time was the world's first wooden roller coaster to successfully go upside down. I shouldn't say first, but at the time it was the only one. Kind of proof of concept. And then you also had Time Traveler. I don't think anyone saw that one coming. Still the fastest, steepest, tallest spinning coaster in the world. And now you've got Mystic River Falls, which is still the tallest raft ride in the world, I believe. And so our minds, I think, instantly go to something record-breaking. What about you, Chris?
Well, when I heard about the reports of this seemingly construction happening in this area of the park, this is exactly where I thought their next roller coaster was going to be put. I thought that Fireman's Landing was going to be leading towards the entrance plaza of the latest coaster for Silver Dollar City. And this was maybe 4 or 5 years ago that I was thinking this. It wasn't until I saw the land clearing by Thunderation and Echo Hollow, their large mountainside amphitheater, that I realized, oh, I guess they're building their new coaster over here. But I've had my eye on this area of the park for a while because it could be, like, DJ, let me speculate for a little bit. It could be a new area of the park. Maybe it's a new roller coaster if I want to be bold. Maybe it's like a twin coaster to Fire Chaser Express to really borrow from that theme of that roller coaster in Dollywood. Maybe it's a nice family inverted coaster, which I do think Silver Dollar City would really benefit from. Love those little roller coasters like at Fun Spot or at Dollywood, where you can really just take in the scenery around you in a family inverted style. Now, here's an outside chance, DJ. This is just a wish. This is something that I've wanted Silver Dollar City to have for a while, and I think the ship has sailed on this idea because of Mystic River Falls, and if they didn't do it then, they're probably not going to do it. But I wanted them to have a sort of a fountain show like World of Color at Disney California Adventure, or even think back to the Bellagio in Las Vegas, where there's this reservoir that has lots of fountains that can be projected on or lit up, and they are synchronized to music, and it's a very nice show experience. I wanted Silver Dollar City to do something like that, and it could have been for even like day shows and nighttime spectaculars when they're open through the dark, but I don't think that's going to happen. I had to mention it because it's something that I would have loved Silver Dollar City to have, and who knows, maybe this will be something that we haven't even mentioned, something that will surprise us all.
Yeah, at the same time, it could also just be expanding the infrastructure in the back, too. So
yeah,
could be a wide variety of things. That being said, though, I think you also hit on another good point. I think we need to look at Dollywood, too. And the parks don't mimic each other necessarily, but you have Outlaw Run, and then you have Lightning Rod. You have Wildfire, you could say Tennessee Tornado is their version of that, or even Wild Eagle. So maybe we can look into what they've done and pull some inferences from that. At the same time, could just be another roundhouse. Could be additional maintenance facilities. Who knows? But we'll have to wait and see what comes of that. And you'll be the first to know here on Corkscrew Convos.
Yeah, so now let's leave Southwest Missouri. We're going to leave the Ozarks now and head out to California. Specifically Southern California, specifically Orange County.
We just jumped on Route 66.
Yeah, we went through Amarillo, we went through Albuquerque. It was a long trip, but it was pretty. We got a few knickknacks and souvenirs along the way, but we are now in Southern California. We are in Anaheim, Disney California Adventure, something that we had briefly discussed in a previous episode. They are actually going to be having their Food and Wine Festival returning in some form. And I will credit Mice Chat, which is both a podcast occasionally and a fan site for a lot of Disney information. They released a speculative report based on internal communication between management and cast members, but no official announcement has been released so far. But what they estimate for this event to be is it's going to include most of the park that is Disney California Adventure. Of course, though, not the upcoming Avengers Campus, because that hasn't opened at all yet, so surely they wouldn't just open it for the Food and Wine limited offerings. And also, maybe Hollywoodland would also not be included for that. But it does look like it's going to be a ticketed event, in addition to purchasing tickets for the Food and Wine offerings as well. In the past, I have had the pleasure of attending the Food and Wine Festival at Disney California Adventure. You buy a lanyard with these tasting cards on the outside of the lanyard. You then tear it off, give it to the kiosk, and they give you a delicious little treat or a savory bit of goodness, and that is the Food and Wine Festival. A ton of parks do it now. All the SeaWorld parks pretty much in the past few years have had some version of this offering. Epcot, sort of the originator for the Food and Wine Festival, they do it sometimes as well. What it's going to look like, though, it's also going to absorb the existing shopping and dining options offered currently in Disney California Adventure. We mentioned in a previous episode, sort of the front half of the park is open for outdoor shopping and sometimes indoor shopping as well, and some of the restaurants are open in that section of the park. But now, I think MiceChat speculated that there would be a limited number of specific Food and Wine kiosks that were operating for this festival. And when I say kiosk, I mean sort of the temporary booth that is set up that distributes food and wine and goodness like that. This means, though, that they might just be exchanging fewer dedicated festival booths for the same offerings in existing brick and mortar locations around the park. Because they would be potentially, again, not been announced yet, but it could be open for Cars Land, the Paradise Park, Paradise Gardens and Park section, Pixar Pier, Grizzly Peak as well, that are open and giving a version of this Food and Wine Festival. It will be, of course, a limited capacity as is required for them, but it is sure to do big business, at least as big as they are allowed to do right now under current restrictions. But it's new developments at the Disneyland Resort and interesting to follow.
Jumping back over now to the other side of the country, a park that we have talked about very recently, as in this podcast, particularly this episode, we go back to Wild Adventures. Their wooden roller coaster, their CCI Cheetah roller coaster, built in 2001, an out and back wooden coaster, will not reopen. It did not open for the 2020 season, quote, due to COVID, even though the park's other coasters opened. So it makes you wonder if maybe there was a monetary issue. Maybe couldn't get the ride back up and running or in a place to where it should have been. Maybe it was just time to get rid of it, but they didn't have the funds to get rid of it last year. So this was a way to kind of say bye-bye prematurely. We're not sure. But it did say through a park announcement they're retired to make room for new and exciting changes in the coming years, which is always exciting. If you think about make room, the coaster is located on the edge of the actual park, bordered by open fields. This is primarily a fairly large park. I think it's over 140 acres or something like that. And so with that gone, or I should say leaving, it's still standing there. It's SB&O, standing but not operating, if you need your roller coaster term for the episode, dear listener. This leaves two other large roller coasters. What do you make of this, Chris?
I am disappointed that I will never be able to ride Cheetah, because we mentioned it's an out and back coaster by CCI. That was a firm named Custom Coasters International. They did a nice handful of coasters in the 90s to the early 2000s. This was one of their last roller coasters that they designed. I think of this coaster when I look at it and think of Shivering Timbers at Michigan's Adventure, which is consistently ranked as one of the best wooden coasters out there, because it's big, it's out and back, there's a lot of airtime. This looks like it would have been maybe similar to it. Unfortunately, we just won't get the chance to ride it. I personally have not been to Wild Adventures yet, but I was disappointed to hear that Cheetah will not be reopening at Wild Adventures. And DJ, you have to think about Wild Adventures, leaving out all of the talk that we did earlier on in the show. This could be a refocusing of the park, DJ, because you look, there's those two other large roller coasters left, the Vekoma Boomerang, which is that quick coaster, 6 inversions going forwards and backwards, and the Vekoma suspended looping coaster, which is a pretty common design, but again, it's not my favorite roller coaster. Those are the only other two quote-unquote large roller coasters left at the park. They are going to be getting a petting zoo, I think, if I'm not mistaken, for the 2021 season. Maybe this is a refocusing of what Wild Adventures is here for. Maybe it's refocusing to really just being maybe a zoological experience that has a couple of rides. What would you say to that, DJ?
I would say, I think you're pretty much hitting the nail on the head. I mean, you've got this incredible animal experience, and then this very large, older, I mean, it's hard to say, but 2001 was 20 years ago. So two decade old wooden roller coaster. And I know we just talked about at the beginning of the episode, a coaster from 1919. But you wonder if it really fits. And another thing to consider is wooden roller coasters are pretty loud. I wonder if that was affecting the animals at all too. I mean, that's just something to think about. And like we said earlier, it wasn't on the map, our speculation map from Kentucky Kingdom. So maybe there's something going on there too. Hard to say. I really don't know what to make of it. I think what you said, kind of a refocusing, maybe going back to our roots. I think that could be right because, you really think about it. The wooden coaster, really a lot of the coasters just don't seem like they belong. Again, I haven't been there, so I don't know the layout. We could look at Google Maps, I guess, but I don't know how well it fits.
Yeah, so in the future, I do hope to visit Wild Adventures. I do wish that Cheetah was a part of those plans, but it's just not in the cards. So now, let's go to our lightning round. This is a fast-paced, lightning-quick segment in which we go over things that maybe we don't have a lot of information on right now, or maybe things that we don't have a lot to say about, and or follow-ups to previous discussions that we've had. DJ, what do we have first?
The first piece of information we have at the lightning round, again, very quickly, but going back to Gronalund over in Europe, very exciting because this ride that we talked about a few episodes back, one that really excited me was this small B&M inverted coaster known as Monster. Track has been completed. They completed track on a banked section, not a very tall section or anything like that, but perhaps one of the showstopper elements, I would call it. This is an area of the track that's very close to the boardwalk at this park, very close to the pier. You're going to get really close to this ride, whether or not you're riding or not, of course. So that's exciting to see that that's done, and we should see some testing here pretty soon.
At Knott's Berry Farm, they are reviving their annual Boysenberry Festival, this time as a reservations required event from March 5th to May 2nd of this year. They just recently announced it this week. I personally have been to the park during this festival. It's a great time, a lot of new food and beverage offerings that they premiere during this event. This time, it'll be the food and drink that is the attractions instead of the roller coasters and other rides. So the food and drink will be the star of the show, but if they can put a boysenberry or the boysenberry flavoring into any dish, they're going to do it. They're going to make boysenberry sauce on wings or ribs. They're going to put a berry in a quesadilla, and they'll leave you asking, how did they do that? But believe me, it'll be a tasty mystery.
I'm actually a huge boysenberry fan. That being said, it is time to hit the brakes, but we're not done yet. We have a variety of ways you can have a Corkscrew conversation with us. What are some of those ways, Chris?
Well, we did give a little bit of information about our social media channels earlier in this episode because we had a pretty big event happen on our Twitter account and then by extension our Instagram account and our Facebook account, which you can just search Corkscrew Convos.
Big for us. Big for us.
Big for us. That is a relative term. Yes, big for us. You can just search Corkscrew Convos and it'll take you right to us. I do want to mention, though, before we sign off on this episode, DJ, something that I think we've really tried to do this episode, and that I think I've hoped that we've done it in the past, is give credit for those who do the legwork that we don't do. I mean, Screamscape is a great resource for aggregating news and rumors and reports about what's happening around the world. I I saw that from our vantage point this week when we broke this new huge rumor by breaking down the teaser video from Kentucky Kingdom. There were a few fan sites and maybe a few tweets from people that maybe didn't give us the credit that we were due, DJ. And I know that we're not journalists, they're not journalists, so it's tough to really ask for credit or even expect it. But it's something that I really hope that we personally do keep an effort to do as we talk about things that are going on. Surely we can't go around the world and take pictures and get reports about what's happening in every park in the world. So we do rely on what others do as well, but I do hope that we continue to give credit for those who do the legwork that we can't do or we haven't done. And I do hope that those who use our information and our intrigue, our intellect, do give us credit as well, DJ.
Yeah, I agree with you. And not, it goes back to credit and also remember, kids, cite your sources, whatever that might be. You're totally right. I think we're always going to say here on Corkscrew Convos, and maybe this is where we make a promise to ourselves. Maybe when we're in episode 100, 500,000, 10,000, whatever that looks like, that we will always give credit where it's due. So again, definitely check out Screamscape. Great resource for you. We use RCDB, Roller Coaster Database, all the time to get information about many of these rides that we just can't contain. We can't contain it in our mind. We don't know all of these stats, all of these figures. We have to have a place to go. So whether it's there, we talked about Mice Chat on this episode. You can go back to our other episodes. We're always going to tell you where that news is from, and I think that's very important. I think it's important to keep the transparency. And like you said, we're not journalists, but at the same time, we're breaking news, and we're doing our best. And so I know we were excited to what seemed to be like deduce this rumor and kind of break that. Looks like, we had been the first to do that. Maybe we hadn't have been. We don't know. But, again, appreciate you all out there for listening to us. And remember, always give folks credit. Always do appreciate that when people give me credit, because I always give them credit. Always just works out that way. So there is a variety of ways to talk to us, whether it's on Facebook, Corkscrew Convos, you can find us there. You'll find more long platform discussion, maybe some articles as well. Sometimes we'll repost some photos from Instagram, but maybe a different take on those photos. Whereas Instagram, very photo heavy. We're going to continue to travel towards two parks when that becomes much more possible. Right now, Chris and I are sifting through our archive, showing you some great places we've been. Maybe you have a photo of yourself that you would like to be featured. That's something great too. Send it over to us and we'll repost it and give you credit for that. Also, we're on Twitter, Corkscrew Convos. We talked about that. And our email, corkscrewconvos@gmail.com. There's a reason to follow the show on each of these platforms. And as far as email, if you want to write in a question, it's a great way to do it. And we're always posting something fun on Instagram right before we record a show, taking a poll, having you answer a question. But send us a question and we'll be sure to shout you out as well.
Mm-hmm. And I'll say one more thing about when we credit things. Dear listener, I want you to hold us accountable. If there's something that you're interested in or that you hear us speak about, and we're talking about something happening in China, and we don't reference how we got that information, I would encourage you to keep us honest. Ask us where we got this information, because then you now have access to that resource as well. And that's good for everyone. That gets them more exposure. That helps you become more linked with things that are going on. I have to think that there are times that maybe we haven't given credit where credit is due sometimes, but I do hope moving forward that we will always have a mind for citing our sources, DJ. Now on Instagram, we do have that 250 follower giveaway. So, I mean, if you have to just pick one social media platform to follow, Right now, I'm going to say Instagram because we do have that follower giveaway happening. Once we reach that 250 follower mark, we will have that celebration post and we'll have more instructions about how to enter that giveaway there. But I will say, if you are still listening to this end of show business and you haven't tuned it out, you haven't turned it off, wow. I'm really impressed by how thorough you are with your podcast, dear listener. I do appreciate it. But if you made it this far, go ahead and subscribe. It's free. It just puts the episodes in front of your eyes sooner so that you can listen to them where the fajita is still sizzling on the plate. I mean, when you get a fajita and you order it from the restaurant, they bring it out when it's still sizzling on a very hot plate. That's sort of like when you subscribe to a podcast. The news, the goings-on, it's all going to be hot. It's going to be sizzling and current. So go ahead and subscribe.
Yeah, make sure to subscribe. If you've made it this far, chances are you're liking the podcast, and consider also talking about it with a friend. Maybe share it with them. Consider leaving that review as well. It helps us out. You leave a review on Apple, let's say, we're going to read it out, give you a shout out on the show, and we've done it. We've done it in the past. We're going to keep doing it, and you can hear your review reverberated to the masses of our massive audience. That being said, we do have a great audience. We love everyone that's been listening. We really appreciate you sticking around with us, and we'll see you next time on episode 20.
Yes, just make sure that is a 5-star review. As long as it's 5 stars, you write what you want on that Apple podcast. But until next time, my name is Chris.
And I'm DJ.
And this has been another Corkscrew Convo. Thanks for listening.
Thanks, everyone.